What do you consider to be the main challenges for health systems regarding access and financing of medicines? What would be your first actions to be considered by WHO regarding the report of the high-level panel on access to medicines? The question is on the screens so that the three candidates can have the possibility of reading it in case you need. Thank you, Dr. Nabarro.
Thanks very much indeed, Karina, and thank you for the opportunity to be here at this meeting and to interact with the Council. I'm just at the end of a visit to 8 different countries in the region, and the most important finding that I have is that many of your countries are approaching health issues in ways that really align with what I have been trying to do all my professional life, and that is particularly to put people at the centre and to have interdisciplinary approaches to health challenges. The question about the main challenges for health systems regarding access to and financing of medicines is, of course, important for all the countries in this region. But let's take it apart a little bit. We want to be sure that everybody, everywhere, is enabled to access the care that they need to respond to the health challenges they face, care that is of good quality, care that is respecting the issues that are important to them. And within that, medicines are a key element. They're not the only element. And making sure that they are properly prescribed and making sure that they are available in adequate quantity and that they are not in any way counterfeit or substandard is an absolutely important part of the work that we do. Now, sometimes there are efforts made to address this question from a particular perspective, for example, intellectual property, local manufacture, quality of generics, and actually each of these are important. And so I'd like to suggest to you that the main challenge is to ensure that the necessary medicines are accessible where they are needed, at an affordable cost, and of quality. I have much experience of working on this. When I was working in WHO, I was very involved in the Essential Medicines Programme, which is something that I think is of central importance to all nations. And I'd like to see that work developed further.
Thank you.
I'd like to see it done within the context of the high-level panel, and that's something that I worked on in the Office of the Secretary-General, and I'd like to take that very seriously and take it further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nabarro. Dr. Nishtar.
Thank you very much for that question. There are 2 aspects to that question. Firstly, in terms of the report of the high-level panel, we have to be cognizant of the fact that it speaks to different audiences. It speaks to the United Nations system and asks them to create a special task force, a high-level oversight body, and it asks them to have a special UN General Assembly session on access to medicines. It talks to the private sector and asks them to report on their efforts to make medicines accessible on a yearly basis. And then it talks to countries and it asks them that they should look at the issue of access to medicines within the context of the rights framework. That it should make funding available for neglected diseases, but we should make sure that the funding that is made, that the products of research from that funding should be in the public domain. It specifically asks countries to strengthen the capacity of the patent offices, and whatever clinical trials that are happening within that country, they should make sure that the failed trials, the reports of the failed trials are made public as well. And then it also asks countries to make use of flexibilities under the TRIPS agreement. So these are the asks of the high-level report of countries. In terms of WHO, the report asks WHO to make information on price available so that it can be the basis of negotiation of countries with the industry. And it also asks the WHO to move ahead with the R&D convention. which is a legally binding treaty. So there are several asks of different constituencies under the Access to Medicines report, and of course WHO has a responsibility to to help countries with exercise the flexibilities as provided under the TRIPS agreement. It has the responsibility to move forward in terms of the R&D convention. It has the responsibility to provide the information on price. But we also have to be cognizant in terms of the first stem of your question, that access to medicine is not only about IP-related issues and about price. It is about a whole host of health systems issues as well, espousing universal coverage policies and social policies. And it's about a number of different things which are never in the mainstream debates on access to medicines, such as safety and vigilance and action against spurious drugs and setting of price for orphan drugs and inclusion of high-cost drugs in national essential drug lists and access to controlled medicines and regulation of things such as biosimilars. So I think the access to medicines equation is a much broad equation of which intellectual property and price is one aspect, but there are many important global roles which are WHO's exclusive domains. And of course, it is its responsibility to promote and facilitate countries espouse the right policies and plans and put health systems arrangement in place.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nishtar. Dr. Adanum Ghebreyesus.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to thank Unasur for this opportunity. I think this is part of the universal health coverage, and Unasur has actually made a lot of progress, especially with access to medicine, and I have to commend. And my experience also in Ethiopia as part of the universal health coverage speaks for itself. When we did the reform, one of the areas we focused as part of the universal health coverage was to increase access and the fragmented procurement in the country. Ethiopia is, as you know, 100 million population. We pulled it, and using that economy of scale, like what is you're doing in PAHO and Unasur, and also price negotiations, we lowered the price very significantly. This is what I have done, and it helps. But I think there are many other things we need to do, especially local manufacturing. We should produce locally. We should increase our local production. That will actually be a game changer. Not only that, what we produce locally should get pre-qualification from WHO as soon as possible. You read about Don McNeil's report on cholera. Cholera is the disease of the poor, and the pre-qualification took more than 20 years. If it were the disease of the rich, it would have been pre-qualified maybe in 1 year or so. So I think the local production and the speed up in pre-qualification, and WHO can help on that, are a combination of good factors. In addition to that, the pricing surveillance, price capping, and also the proper attitude is very, very important. And that proper mentality, that people first, will address it, and that needs political commitment. So when we talk about access to medicine, we should see it as part of the universal health coverage, but in addition to that, we should believe that it will not happen without real political commitment. It's not technical. Then when it comes to what I would do first with the high-level recommendation, WHO's role was minimal. I will bring WHO to take a strong leadership in that respect, and based on the list, including the intellectual property and so on, we need to make progress with sense of urgency, because people are dying while we have the medicine at hand. Why? Why? It's morally wrong. It's immoral, and we have to fight it as is. Thank you.